Welcome to Architrave Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. Today we are going through the character creation. This is an introduction to the character creation in my own system, Arches and Avatars. We are going to go through as far as we can, and subsequent videos in the series we'll get to each section as we go. So, the first step is just player basics. What is the player's goal? What are you trying to get out of the game? Why are you here? What quadrants do you like? Basic session 0 stuff, right? And then your race and subrace, of course, your class and subclass, because yes, you get your subclass at level 1, as it ought to be. And then your star signs, which I took pretty much directly from Elder Scrolls. It's like, oh, born under a certain star or constellation gives you powers? I like that. Of course, it's not the exact stuff that's in Elder Scrolls, but the concept behind it, totally. And then your background. Your background in Arches and Avatars, I'll just call it A&A, probably. Your background is actually made up of 4 different parts, because when I was in the early stages of developing A&A, I was looking at 5e, of course, because I played 5e, I knew 5e, and I wanted to make sure that when you switched over to A&A, that you would have access to all of the various character options that you had in D&D 5e. I wanted to make sure you didn't lose out on anything. You could take your D&D character and remake them here, and you would have everything, if not a little more, right? And so I was looking at background and thinking, all right, how do I do my backgrounds? And I studied all of D&D 5e's backgrounds. It's like, okay, here's this one. It says, urchin. Okay, you grew up on the streets and you were homeless and hungry and all that. All right, that's cool. And then here's this one that says knight. And I'm like, all right, you're a knight, that's your profession. Here's this other one, you're a merchant. Oh, okay. And here's this other one, inheritor, where you inherited an item and people are after you for it. And then here's this other one, haunted one. And I was like, something's not gelling here. These aren't the same thing. We call this a background. We call each of these a background, but these are like different parts of life. Are you telling me that when someone is an urchin, if I choose urchin, like, oh yeah, I grew up an urchin, that was like 20 or 30 years, that was my entire background, and then if I'm like a 30-year-old, wizard or something, this entire time I did nothing but be an urchin? That's my entire background? Like, that sounds like my childhood, that sounds like my upbringing, not my entire background before I became an adventurer. And I looked at something like, City Watch Investigator, or, you're a knight or something. I'm like, that sounds like your profession. That sounds like what you did when you were an adult before you were an adventurer. And then I see stuff like inheritor. I'm like, how is this how does this define your background? Yeah, I inherited an item from someone. It's like, that's it? That's all you ever did for 30 years before you became an adventurer? You inherited an item? Where's the rest of your background, buddy? Right? I was like, these are different things. So I categorized them into their various categories and grouped like with like. So like these are events that happen to you, like Haunted One that you get from like Ravenloft book or something. Haunted One, Inheritor, and others. Like these are things that happen to you. These are life events. You inherited an item. That was just an event. You saw some terrible evil thing and you were haunted by it. It's like, okay, that's an event, right? And so with your profession, that's the thing you did when you were an adult. That's your City Watch Investigator, a merchant, etc., right? And then you have your upbringing. Were you an urchin? Were you a commoner? Were you, in training, like a cloistered scholar, a noble son, etc.? That's your actual upbringing, right? And then there's your homeland. I did this in reverse order. It's technically homeland, upbringing, profession, and then life events. But your homeland, you actually get benefits from where you were, where you grew up. I got this idea from Elder Scrolls, from Morrowind specifically. Great game. I loved Morrowind so much. So in that, you can choose various races and just Nord, for example. If you choose a Nord, they come from the Northland, from the snowy, it's supposed to be snowy, Skyrim, and they have this affinity with the sky and storms and the sky goddess and all that stuff. And so when you pick the race, they have resistance to frost and resistance to lightning, shock damage, because they live there. It's like, oh, that's cool. The place you live gives you a bonus, right? The Dark Elves, the Dunmer, as they ought to be called, they live in Morrowind, the land of volcano and ash. They have fire resistance. And I was like, technically, in Elder Scrolls, each of these are assigned to the race itself, that no matter where the race grew up, they have this. But I was like, I'm going to tweak that. I'm going to say that when you grew up in a certain place, you get benefits from that place, right? And of course, in the playtest book, it's a bunch of mundane options. I don't have like fire resistance because you grew up near a volcano. It's more mundane stuff like, oh, you get an extra, proficiency in athletics because you grew up in the mountains, and so you're good at climbing mountains. You have big, thick quads. And so it's more minor stuff, but still, it's in there. So yeah, your background is 4 parts: your homeland, your upbringing, your profession, and your life events. And you actually get to plot out your character. Like, yeah, I actually lived a full life, right? And life events are optional. You don't have to choose to have inherited something or have, Haunted One background or something, because those always carry a positive and a negative, so you don't have to choose it. So anyway, background, it's actually in depth, it's actually fleshed out, and so you can actually have a full character. Arches and Avatars is about giving you more customization, and this isn't super mega complex. You're not doing algebra here. It's just you get to pick a couple more things that actually flesh out your character. And guess what? If you like the way 5e does it and you want your character to be simple, that's okay. Pick one of them. That's what you do in 5e anyway. There's Urchin and Merchant and Haunted One, and you pick only one of them anyway. So go ahead, just pick one, right? It's simple if you want it to be simple, but there is optional complexity. Not that I really think this is complex, but anyway. All right, next you have your pursuit. Your pursuit is something I really like the idea. I think I saw an image sometime of a knight or a soldier, playing a lute in front of his party members. I might have just imagined it, and I was like, why is it that only the bards get this Song of Rest thing, where oh yeah, you can play your song, play your music, and help out your allies? It's like anyone of any class should be able to do that. Anyone should be able to sing a song, play some music. It's kind of the same as the inspiring leader feat. It's like, yeah, why can't people just inspire their allies? Do something like that, some kind of bardic-ish inspiration, magical thing. Everyone should be able to do a little something. So I came up with a bunch of ideas for pursuits. I'll get to them later when I actually get to it. But there's, blacksmith, alchemist, apothecary, minstrel, etc. It's where you can actually, you can repair and sharpen your weapons and armor, and even make new stuff. You can, sing your songs to your allies and give them bonuses to saving throws and stuff. You can make, elixirs and potions or poisons and whatnot. You can actually, and tonics. Tonics are cool. It's like Fallout Chems, where it's just yeah, I like tonics. It's like, yes, take Chems from Fallout and put it in my game. More stuff. There's so much stuff in this game. But yeah, it's like your pursuits are something you choose. Your one pursuit is something you choose on top of your background, where it's like, yeah, I did all these things in my life, but the whole time I was dabbling in alchemy, or the whole time I was dabbling in this or that, right? I learned to play. You can learn to play while being, an urchin or a commoner and a noble's son, and then you grew up to be a merchant, and then you had a life event of inherited something, and the whole time you were learning to play an instrument. You get more customization in this. You actually get to have a 3-dimensional character, like a 6-dimensional character. You actually get to flesh out the finer details, and it's so much more fun to play a full character than a half character. In 5e, the characters are so one note, where it's just it's your class. That's pretty much all you are. Your race is kind of yeah, it's a note. It's 2 notes technically, but class is 10 times louder and plays on that piano 10 times longer. Your class is just so important. That's also the only place you get customization after level 1. It's your multi-classing, which again doesn't make sense. It's like, I'm a wizard fighter. It's like, you can't just be an Eldritch Knight. You're a whole wizard and you're a whole fighter, right? It wrecks the fantasy. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, yeah, I have that. And then afterward, you choose your equipment. This is character creation. You choose your equipment. Equipment is actually really cool. When I get there, I'm going to be so happy to show you all the equipment. And then you have adherence. Adherence is what you attune your body to. You adhere your body to something. The initial options of the game, the first ones I came up with were elemental adherence, right? So you can, adhere yourself to earth, water, air, or fire, and even 2 neighboring ones to get access to their para element if you want, which is more advanced. But yeah, you can attune yourself. You can become adherent to an element and gain powers and abilities from it. That will be explained more when I tell you all how my elements work and the actual magic that is in the elements, and therefore in the weather, and therefore in the races, because the races are all made of the elements as well. Like dwarves are made of stone, and wood elves are made of trees, and which is like the cross between stone and like earth and water gets plant life and trees, and so wood elves came from there. Anyway, and then you have your ideal and devotion. I believe I already talked about this. I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to release this video, if it's before or after the ideal or devotion one. But yeah, ideal and devotion. It's essentially your religion. It's your actual practiced thing where it's like, you know, you can work for yourself. The neutral is just motive. It's like your own personal motive, and that's when you write down like, I want to do these things. These are my goals. These are my values. This is my obligation, and this is my weakness. This is who my character is. This is what I'm doing in the world, right? And so that's your neutral one. But you can also choose more positive or negative ones like peace, justice, harmony, oppression, strife, enmity, etc. And you know, other characters in the world will have different ideals and whatnot, and be more devoted or less devoted to their ideals. But there's more to this. The more devotion you have, just like the more adherence you have to an element, and there is a level of progression, the more devotion you have to your ideal, the more powers and abilities you get, right? The more devotion you have toward motive, the more luck you have. Where it's like, this is free, it's neutral. Like, you just want to do you, well, here's luck to help you do you, right? You can spend it on whatever. And then with stuff like, you know, we'll pick grace. Grace is like the highest one. That lets you do healing and cleansing magic and whatnot. So, you know, the whole paladin's lay on hands, any peasant can get that if they actually move, if they actually act in a way that is in accordance with grace, right? There's grace, justice, etc., right? You can also swear an oath to that ideal and then get, you know, powers and stuff. Anyone, regardless of race and class, can swear an oath to an ideal and get powers from it. And as long as you are working toward that oath, you maintain your powers, and you can even get more if you fulfill the oath and keep doing major things, right? So, there's no paladin class in my system because anyone can be a paladin or swear an oath of vengeance. I like the idea of, you know, a man coming home and finding the bodies of his wife and kids in his burned down building, and, you know, orcs came by and killed them, and he swears an oath of vengeance right there, I will kill them. He doesn't just get heavy armor proficiency, and martial weapon proficiency. No. Your class is different from your oath, right? These are two different things. So yeah, you know, you may have some like smite ability. I say only if you swear an oath to something like justice or vengeance and enmity. That's when you have strife. If you swear your sacred oath to grace and liberty and peace, you're not going to get smite. You're going to get healing, right? These are different things, right? That also makes casters not so overly powered because they get access to everything. Anyway, I'm getting carried away with ideal and devotion. It's super cool. Getting an ideal and your devotion in game, regardless of class, is really cool. It's another layer of customizability. In 5e, it's like, here's your race, which is like really small, and here's your class. It's the biggest one. It takes up all the space, and that's it. In my system, you have your race, class, your big old background, because background, you don't even need to mention background in 5e. It's so small and does almost nothing. It gives you a couple of proficiencies, like tool and skill proficiencies, and that's it. You're done. Maybe a language. It's just, it doesn't ever come up. But in my system, it's like, there's a lot here. So yeah, you have your race and your class, you have your star sign that you're born under that continues to give you benefits and abilities and stuff every level. You have your 4-part background, you have your pursuit, and you have your adherence and devotion. Your character is so multi-layered in Arches and Avatars. There's so much customizability. It's not just boring one-note character. It takes longer to make a character than in 5e, I'll give you that. But it's not more complex. It just takes longer. There's more to do. But these things don't like cross-reference and interface with each other. There's no complexity. There's no weaving web. It's just this one and this one and this one and this one. Yeah, you know, it's just you go down the line and you pick your options and you're done. Also, everything in the background is on roll tables, so you can just roll for your homeland, your upbringing, your profession, and even life events if you want. All right. Lastly, well, not quite lastly, but in terms of mechanics, you have traits. I played Fallout New Vegas, and there were traits that you could get at the start of the game, and I know this exists in other older computer games, and Fallout isn't the only one, and of course, probably in other tabletop games as well. So I took that. I was like, okay, I like traits. I like that. It gives you a positive and a negative. I was also playing the Outer Worlds, and they had traits and stuff too. So I was like, cool. I'm absolutely taking that, and so. You get that common, video game RPG, mechanic in A&A. You can actually pick traits, and it's like, heavy hitter. You have an extra chance to crit, but your weapons also break twice as fast. Or your light frame. You don't sink, or you dodge stuff better, and you can balance on stuff, and you don't activate weight trigger traps, stuff like that. But your limbs cripple twice as easily. I took it from Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and I think probably even the Outer Worlds. I just took stuff that I thought would fit in a fantasy world, and I just translated it. So there's a lot of stuff in here. So much customization. You can have all the same stuff here with all the rest of it And it can be, you know, roughly the same character after character, but just picking different traits each time, you can have a different experience. It's really cool. And then I talked about your character motives, goals, values, obligation, and weakness. Then you make your backstory and personality, and that's all your background stuff. It's big, it's long, it's customized, so much customization, it's in depth, it's full. You can actually make a real full character, and you can port your 5e character over and just expand them. They can be so much more. And the mechanics of the game actually support your character concept and your roleplay and all that stuff. So yeah, I designed it like this because I think it integrates all the quadrants of the Arch game better than 5e does, and that's like the primary goal of A&A is just fix 5e. I still want to play 5e. I still like the D20 and the 6 attributes and the race and the class and the structure. I like all those things, but I add more things in there to fix stuff. And remember, it's optional complexity. If you don't want to be a blacksmith or a minstrel or an alchemist, a potion maker, don't pick it. You don't have to. It doesn't interface with anything else in the game. You know how 5e is very popular because it's very modular, it's moddable. You can, add that in and take that out, and the rest of the game works. That's because a lot of systems don't interact with each other. They're all kind of separate. Same thing here. You can say, I only pick one of the background things, like 5e. Okay. You can say, I don't want pursuit. That's fine. I don't want life events. That's fine. You can just pick your race and class and your sub-race and your subclass and be done. Just like 5e. Absolutely simple. So it's really easy to onboard new players to be like, hey, you have a lot of options. Do you want to look at the options? No, that's fine. Just do it like 5e, right? It's so moddable. It's there. It's that perfect middle ground where all the 5e players can be satisfied, and those who want more customization, maybe more crunch, maybe just more in-depth, like I want it to be a real character, they get satisfied too. It's all in here. Next time we're going to go to race and sub-race, and then class and subclass. I'm not going to go through every single option in the book, but just give you the basic rundown of what it looks like, how you roll stats, all that stuff. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Thank you to my patron, Jack McCarthy, and God bless. See you later.